Hello. So, the Portal Mapping and Modding Discord server recently hosted their first competition of 2026, and as the amazing mapper that I most definitely am, I decided to join. So, no further introduction, this is how I made my entry for the first Portal 2 mapping competition of the year. However, before I go head first into how I made the map, let's talk about the competition itself and why I joined. So, the January competition was part of PMAM's revamp of the year. It also has actual prize money, which for something like a Portal 2 mapping competition is quite rare. Enough about these meaningless details. What about the theme? What is the theme of this competition? Blue! The theme of the competition is the word blue. That's it. Now, I'm gonna be honest, I originally didn't want to join. It's just, something like this seems a bit out of my league, even though I am amazing. I did have a vision. What's the first thing you think about when you hear the word blue? That's right, it's water. Yeah, you think of water. So I had this idea of a map taking place on the ocean floor, with the players surrounded by glass so they could see the ocean with like rocks and glowing mushrooms and shiny cat vines and stuff like that. That was idea 1 for this map. Idea 2 would be related to the way you enter the map. I wanted the player to wake up on a boat surrounded by an ocean and near a small island, and then have the player go down to the actual chamber via an elevator located on said island. And so I started working. Pretty soon though, I ran into some problems. For the boat idea, I needed the skybox to be foggy, so it would give a quote-unquote endless effect to the ocean, but I just couldn't get that to work, like, at all. The source engine uses skybox textures to determine how the skybox should behave and where it is. One solution that I did have was to make a really big room out of skybox textures. This is a terrible idea, like genuinely. What was I thinking when I made this? Not only does it increase compile times by a lot, but it also just like didn't work. I don't understand. I really don't. Anyways, the other problem was related to the ocean floor idea. You see, I wanted the light to behave like you're actually underwater, but once more, I could not for the life of me figure out how to do that. I'm sure you could figure it out with like scripting and like that, but I don't know how to do that. I'm a mapper, I see pretty and readable interface and go click on the goofy buttons Hammer has to offer. So that's it, right? I couldn't figure out those ideas and I didn't join, right? Well, that's almost what I did, but then I get a notification from the PMM Discord server. Oh, it's a new trailer for the revamped YouTube channel. I didn't think much of it at that time, but nevertheless I decided to watch it. Little did I know, that video literally, not really, held all the solutions to my problems. Because later in the video I came across this. Wait a minute, that's exactly what I need! This is part 4 of the Every exhibition, a seriously impressive map that all of you should play, and that also happens to have an underwater section. Filled with excitement, I hopped on Hammer and, with the knowledge I had gathered from that map, I started working away at a proof of concept. And, sure enough, it didn't look like complete and utter garbage! In the moment I was really happy, but honestly I still wasn't convinced that I should join. Still puzzled, I watched the rest of the trailer and holy shit, is that my map? Yeah, that's right, they included my map in the trailer, let's go! And they put it at the competition section of that video. And just like that, I joined the first Portal mapping and modding competition of 2026. Now, I may have had the proof of concept on how the map would look, and don't worry, we'll get into that later, but I had no puzzle. And you know why they say you can't spell portal without P, which stands for puzzle. But like, how do you make a good puzzle? In my opinion, making the actual puzzle is one of the hardest parts when it comes to making a Portal 2 map. Generally, I try to follow a set of 3 rules. First, all the puzzle elements should be easily observable by the player. This way, the player can more easily brainstorm ideas on how to solve the actual puzzle. Second, how the chamber is presented is extremely important. Having a pleasant layout changes how the player perceives the puzzle. That's not to say that having a confusing layout is just bad game design. In fact, I think that if executed properly, it could work really well, but most of the times it doesn't. Third, and this is my personal favorite rule, reuse past test elements. Having a test element only be used once in the entire chamber is just boring and also make for a very satisfying solution. Think about it, people who play puzzle games play them to figure shit out, and if the elements aren't used for more advanced solutions, they're just gonna be left empty. An example of these rules not being followed would be literally almost any map in the recently released category. Most of these are made by quote-unquote little teamies who got back from school and decided to make a puzzle in the in-game editor in like 15 minutes. Now I hear y'all say that it's unfair to compare something like this to more professional maps, but I bring you a counter-argument. Who gives a shit? Yeah, deal with that, I bet you want, you little bitch. With that being said, here is what I came up with. I think it's okay for a puzzle. It's nothing too special and nothing too hard. Little did I know, this very thing would come back later to haunt me and make life a whole lot harder. Now that I had an actual puzzle, it was time to move on to the art style, aka the joyous and whimsical part of making a map. Yippee! 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 When making the art style, I knew I had to add a bunch of pretty colorful lights. The bottom of an ocean is really up for interpretation, so this was a good excuse to add these things in. Now, what will emit these lights, you might ask? Well, the answer to that question are magical glowing ocean mushrooms, accompanied by glowing ocean vines and glowing ocean flowers. Yeah. I also decided to make lots of curving walls, keeping the whole ocean / underwater base vibe all together, and also they look cool, so yeah. Fuck you. While we're on this topic, I'd also like to quickly talk about the inspiration for this map. You see, I really like Cold Tricky, like god, I love that game. If you haven't played it, then go play it, it's really good. Anyways, I took a lot of inspiration from the level 5-1. Spoilers, if you haven't played Cold Tricky, by the way. Yeah. It's a level that takes place mostly underwater, and it has these pretty purple blue lights, which is pretty much exactly what I was looking for. The Ultra Kill inspiration extends all the way to the name of the map, which is also a reference to it. Deep Blue is also the name of the song that plays in the level 5-1, and it's overall a fitting name for the map as well. Speaking of the song Deep Blue, Hakita did not need to go this hard when making the song. Like, oh my god, this song is unbelievably peak, listen to this. Dude, it's a game about killing machines and demons in hell. You did not need to add that jazz part, my god. Anyways, now that we have a puzzle and an art style, it's time to finally start working on the map. But before you do that, if you like what you're seeing here, then like, subscribe, I guess. Yes, I'm seriously begging for subscribers on a channel with 0 videos, but I only plan to yap about stuff in this editing style. So, I mean, if you've enjoyed this video so far, then feel free to do so. Anyways, with that out of the way, we got a map to make. And so I began working away. First thing I did was to recreate the puzzle I made in the Portal 2 in-game editor in Hammer, which was a fairly simple task. I wanted to give the player more freedom to look at the that's the visual style I make. So instead of something more like the average map you see in the Portal 2 workshop, which has like that hallway leading to the puzzle, I decided to encase the whole thing in glass and also give more freedom of movement without accidentally creating any skips. Also, look, the glass curves towards the top, how fun! Next, it was time to decorate the outside. I added rocks, mushrooms, kelp, vac tubes and much more. And I also added the previously mentioned lights. And I'm not gonna lie, it was starting to look good. Until disaster struck. ED alloc, no free edicts. This error message sent an awful chill down my spine and made me want to die. It basically says that the entity limit has been surpassed and that it crashed the game. But before I go on and explain how I fixed this, what are edicts? In the source engine, aside from world geometry, you need entities. Almost each entity gets assigned to an edict, and there's a limit of 2048 edicts per map. That might sound like a lot, but if you're careless like how I was, then it's going to fill up pretty fast. Now, entities are extremely important in a source engine map. On an ad in your map, you need an entity. Need some lighting? That's another entity. Want to make a prop move or be animated? You guessed it, it's an entity. That last one is important for our situation. Props can come in 3 different flavors. You get your prop statics, which are used for general decoration since they don't need to move or change skins or anything else, and therefore they don't count towards the edict limit. Next, you got your prop dynamics. As the name suggests, these things can move, can be animated, can change skins, and much more. But they do count towards the edict limit. And finally, you got your prop physics, which makes a prop have physics. Wow, who could have guessed? Now, this next thing is very important to know. Not all props can be every type of prop. For example, this rock can only be prop static and prop dynamic, while this bed frame can only be prop static and prop physics. Here comes our issue. The vine model that I was using to make the kelp can only be prop dynamic. I think you can see where I'm going with this. Considering that each kelp plant thing is made of like 12 of these smaller vine props and you need to place lots of them, the entity limit filled up pretty fast. So then, what was my solution to this? Did I change the model data to make it compatible with a prop static? Oh, or maybe I made the prop longer so I don't use as many prop dynamics per kelp because I'm so awesome and cool and humble, and just like made the kelp structure shorter and deleted a bunch of them. Yeah. At that time, I thought the map was pretty much done. I mean, I had a puzzle, the decoration was looking fire. All I really needed to do was to figure out how to do the boat idea from the beginning of the video. Out of curiosity, I decided to check the competition channel to see what the other participants were making. And looking at the screenshots, I realized my map had a big and fatal flaw. It was boring as fuck. No, seriously, it's basically just a puzzle maker puzzle lazily plopped at the bottom of the ocean. It's so ass and boring, and the thing is, the puzzle isn't even that interesting. If I were to finish that beginning part and make a better puzzle, then maybe it would have been fine, but guess what? I suck at making good puzzles. Like, this is way harder than it looks. So, while panicking and thinking that my map would be too boring, I came with an idea. What if, and hear me out on this one, what if after the puzzle there was another part where a bit of glass would break and suddenly the room would begin to flood, triggering a timed event? If done properly, this would most definitely make up for the fact that the map was kind of boring. And as a bonus, it would then have something unique standing for it. However, all of this would happen only if this section were to be done properly. Well, we'll see how that turned out. So, plan. Player goes in elevator thinking it's final elevator, but then suddenly it stops, lights begin to flash and water begins to rise. Sounds simple enough, right? Right? Step 1. Copy Vav's homework. Not even into the layout phase and I'm already copying something. I'm just so good, man. I wanted to copy the props they used to make the base and the turbine thingy at the top. The walls, the floor and the ceiling were all made by me, and you can tell. By the way, on the topic of the geometry of the elevator exit area, don't do circular floors the way I did.
What? It's just an ordinary crabby. Oh my goodness!
I had to find out that this is stupid and dumb and that I should be ashamed of myself for doing this in multiple maps. Anyways, next I quickly whipped out a layout for the flood sequence that includes a certain wall bouncing part. Look, if you've played the Blood then you're probably more than acquainted with this area for reasons we'll get into later. Other than that, this layout is not very complicated. It includes some basic portal placements and launches, but it's also not too easy to the point where you can complete it in one shot. Wait, what? Wait, who the f are you? So far so good, eh? Things were taking shape quite well. Next, I began decorating the outside of the area. It's more of the stuff you've seen before. Seafloor, rock walls, kelp vines, vac tubes, and so on and so forth. I did not, however, add the mushrooms back. I mean, you'd only really be able to see them at the elevator base, and it also just like saves edicts. But other than that, the part was pretty much done. All I had left to do was to make the water actually rise, to trigger the flooding sequence, and finish that boat part I keep mentioning. And the game keeps crashing. Shit. This left me stumped for quite a while. It was even more concerning considering the fact that this came completely out of the blue. After much experimentation, I was able to narrow down this issue to the base of the elevator. Okay, I know I said that how made the ceiling and the floor was bad, but like, it wasn't that bad that it could crash the entire game. Nevertheless, I started troubleshooting. Maybe it has something to do with the props, and if I delete them then it would work. No, that wasn't it. Oh, or maybe it's got something to do with the vis-leaves, which are these blue lines that are used to determine visibility. No, that also wasn't it. Maybe it's the fucking glass. Yeah, that has to be the issue, right? No, that also wasn't it. I'm going fucking insane. At that point, I had no idea what to do. I mean, the only thing that was left to check was the floor, but like, there's no way that's what caused the crash in the first place. Like, there's no way, right? I don't even like. How does that? You know what? It's fine. No, it's fine. It's fine. So, anyways, next up, I decided to tackle the water, which was a lot trickier than I thought it would be. Not because I couldn't figure out how to make the water rise or make it rise and also kill you if you fall in it, but because of how it looks. No, stop that music, we are not doing another Vsauce build. I swear to God, we'll do it in another video again, okay? My God. Anyways, remember what I said about entities? Entities are extremely important in a source engine map. Wanna add fog in your map? You need an entity. Need some lighting? That's another entity. Wanna make a prop move or be animated? You guessed it, it's an entity. Well, even brushes, aka walls and stuff like that, can be turned into entities, which are a little different from the previously mentioned entities. Those are called point entities, by the way. Just thought I'd point that out. That was not good. Okay. For example, triggers, which are these rectangles that can trigger something when a player goes through it, are entities made from brushes. Now, why am I explaining this, you ask? Well, water in the source engine is also just a brush. Yeah, Valve doesn't use some sort of fancy ass tool to make like realistic water and stuff like that. Each brush also needs to have a material on each side. This could be a simple texture like this black test chamber wall tile, a refractive texture like this glass, or an overlay texture like the indicator lights you see in every puzzle. Materials in the source engine are made out of two files: a .vtf file, which stores the actual image used for the material, and the .vmt file, which tells it how to behave. The latter file is more important in this case. A .vmt file tells the engine what shader to use with the material and what property said shader should use. Let's take, for example, this black metal wall texture black_wall_metal_002a. Opening the VMT file in VPK edit, we can see that the texture uses the shader light map generic, indicated by this top line here. We can also see that it uses the texture black_wall_metal_002a, and that it also uses metal sounds for stuff like footsteps, indicated by these two properties, base texture and surface prop. This material uses some other properties, but I think you get the gist of it. I also chose those three materials for a reason. They all use a different shader. For example, the glass uses a refract shader, and the indicator lights use the shader only generic. With all of this information now stored in your brain-rotted mind, why is this important? Well, water in the source engine is made with a shader called water, yeah, go figure. However, one important thing to note with the water shader is that it doesn't really work with word brushes that are made into entities, which is, you know, a big fucking problem considering the fact that the water needs to be a brush entity for it to be able to move. And I said that it doesn't really work because you can place the water material on a brush entity, but it looks like shit like this. Looks so ass. And so I started looking for a fix. First thing I wanted to do was to look through the textures and see what water textures could work. After much experimentation, I did find one that looked okay, I guess. However, I was still not satisfied with how it looked. I knew there had to be a solution to make it look better. Ultimately, I decided to leave it as is for now and focus on some other things. So, it's the final week of January. The competition was going to end at the very beginning of February, and not gonna lie, I wasn't sure I was going to finish in time. Until I get another Discord notification. This time it was announced that the deadline was moved to the 8th of February, so everyone had an extra week to work with. Looks like Discord saved my ass again. It truly is one of the apps of all time, and they'll definitely make some good decisions, right? Anyways, with the extra time I had on my hands, I surely used it well, right? No! In the final week of January, I didn't do fucking anything related to the map, and I just sat in my room playing Ultra Kill and Hightail, videos on those games are planned by the way, doing schoolwork and rotting away in my bed, scrolling through fucking Instagram reels. But I'm gonna be honest here, this was actually sort of beneficial for me. I was getting pretty tired of working on this map. All the bugs that I encountered really just like, I don't know, turn it into an unenjoyable experience. So fast forward to the middle of the first week of February. 2 problems to tackle, 2 other annoying bugs that I'm going to talk a little about in the next part, and polishing up. Those were the things left to do. I opened up Hammer and, well, I started working again. Now, I'm gonna be very transparent here. I had a whole bit planned saying like, oh, I couldn't resolve the problems in time and I had to settle for less and stuff like that. And then I would say something like, that's what I would say if I was a little bitch. and then reveal that I did actually finish those parts, but yeah, that didn't happen. I couldn't get the bot idea to work, so instead I just made the player spawn in a hallway leading to the map, and I simply couldn't get the water to play nicely, so I settled for the okay-ish looking water. Yeah, I'm really sad I couldn't get them to work, and I'm sure that a mapper with more experience would have probably done them. With that being said, we still got a little to talk about. I began the final days of the competition by properly setting up the flood rising sequence. Up until that point, I was triggering it via a console command, and well, the only thing it did was rise up, which yeah, it doesn't make for a exciting sequence, if I'm being honest. So I did some sound effects like metal bending and glass shattering, made the whole thing shake a bit, and also added music, this red light that keeps flashing in sync with an alarm sound, and finally a proper end to the map. Kinda, I just like added this faith plate that launches you up and then suddenly ends the map. Okay, look, this is the best idea I could come up with it, okay? So shut up. Fuck you. I also modified the glass so it also curves and overall fits in more with the other glass panels. Next, I needed to find the right speed for the water when it rises. So I hopped on the map, played through that sequence and got a time of about 1 minute to reach the end. Doing some math, I got that the water should be moving at a speed of about 33 units per second. I later found out that this was way too fast, but yeah, well, cross that bridge when we get there. And the flood part was pretty much done. The only thing that was left to do was even more pushing up and stuff like that, but other than that, it was looking good. Now, I mentioned before that there were 2 bugs that were bad. Well, let's talk about the first one. Lag. You see, the corridor in which you spawn was, for some unknown reason, extremely laggy. And actually, I shouldn't say for some unknown reason, because it's pretty fucking obvious. Too much shit on the screen. I mean, the entire hallway is entirely made out of glass and the most detailed part of the map is directly in front of you. At that time though, I was stubborn and didn't want to change the glass into a solid texture. As a solution, I tried placing an area portal, which is a brush entity that can seal off an area and make it not render anymore, therefore saving performance, but yeah, it didn't work very well.
What the hell is that?
Ultimately, I replaced the glass with non-transparent walls, which actually turned out a lot better than I thought it would. I mean, it serves as an element of surprise because the first thing you see is like a dark hallway and you wonder where the hell am I? And then you exit and you see that you're underwater. So that actually worked well. Good job, team. That was just one of the 2 bugs. Next one was related to the point entity known as a linked portal door. It's basically just a portal that links to another linked portal door. The difference between these portals and the portals you fire is that these ones don't have any effects, they can be scaled and you can shoot through them. These are used for transitions or spaces that don't make sense, because it creates a seamless link between 2 separate spaces. One example of them being used is in in-game puzzle maker maps. They're the link between the entry hallway and the actual puzzle. What was the issue this time, you might ask? Well, it don't render. That's it. It doesn't render the other side, but it does render it when you're in no clip. Hi, Anything Me here. I just learned while making this video that I was placing these portal entities in the wrong way. Yeah, you're meant to place them in like the center of the actual portal and not in like a corner, which is what I was doing up until this point. So, I mean, that's cool. Yeah, I truly have no idea what I'm doing in Hammer. Anyways, back to the video. I use them to avoid remaking the terrain between the puzzle area and the flood area. If you're wondering why I didn't make the terrain fit in around the hallway between the 2 areas, you gotta remember that I didn't plan to have another part in the first place, and remaking the whole terrain would be a massive pain in the ass. And I'm gonna be honest, I didn't fix this one. Yeah, point and laugh at me and stuff like that. I just deleted the terrain between the two parts, made the hallway longer, and covered any holes caused by the missing terrain with a rock prop. Yeah, it ain't exactly a pretty solution, but it's simple. And the best solution to a problem is usually the easiest one. Yeah, that's a reference, baby. Let's fucking go! Anyways, there were only two things left to do. Even more polishing up and playtesting. Sunday the 8th of February. The final day. Now, as much as I'd love to make it seem like an eventful day, it was quite a boring one. I guess I added quick saves. Yeah. Oh, I also polished up some of the textures. Yep. I also did the color correction. Uh-huh. As I said, pretty boring stuff until disaster struck. It was the afternoon. I was working away in Hammer, and then, suddenly, Hammer crashed. This normally wouldn't be much of an issue. Hammer++ autosaves the map right before a crash, so not a big issue then. Just load the autosave and continue from where you left off, right? No! You see, autosaves don't have the exact same name as the original map. Autosaves are usually named after the original name of the map, followed by _crash. When you load an autosave in Hammer, it asks you if you want to overwrite the original map with the autosave one, basically removing the _crash part from the autosave map. This, again, is not much of an issue. The autosave made right before usually isn't corrupted or anything like that, and it's accurate to the state the map was in right before the crash. The problem is that Hammer asks you this on any autosave from the map. This includes autosaves made several weeks ago, and in my infinite wisdom, I did not notice that I loaded an older autosave, and without much thought, I just clicked yes when Hammer asked me to change the name of the autosave and basically overwrite the main map with the autosaved one. With a click of a button, I had just lost weeks worth of progress. This was pretty devastating. I was really tired at that point and I wanted to quit. For a few minutes, until I realized I could decompile the already compiled map, which wasn't the old autosave version, and get all my progress back. That sure gave me a scare. After that whole conundrum, I finished the last few bits and, well, it was done. Yeah, I finished it in time and I thought it was decent. Next up was playtesting. I hopped on a call with a buddy of mine and, well, he started playing it. And, for the most part, it went well. He found some issues, I fixed them, that's about it. The biggest one was probably the speed of the flood being too high. Now, I call that a skill issue, but I decided to lower it anyways. Other than that, he pointed out some skips and some textures in places where they don't belong, and finally, after a month worth of progress, the map was done. So, I put it on the Steam Workshop, submitted it to the forums, watched the judges play it, and I got 14th place out of 15. Ultimately, it was really cool being a part of this competition, and even if I didn't get a particularly high placement, I'm still somewhat happy with the results. Even though the road was bumpy and I experienced tons of issues along the way, and even after that I didn't even get top 10, I'm glad I participated. I know I'm not that good of a mapper, which is a little cause for concern actually, because I have nearly 1,000 hours on Hammer. But this competition helped me learn lots of stuff that I use in future maps, and the advice I got from the judges was good. Like, apparently the water was still too fast, and the layout of that final part could have been better. Before I end the video, I'd like to take a moment to thank War the Nuclear Shield for making some of the custom foliage in this map. Those props were taken from his Overgrown Renaissance pack that includes a lot of similar props that are all great, and he's generally a cool guy. I'd also like to thank my friend Muffin for playtesting the map. If you look at any of my custom maps, then you'll probably notice that they're all playtested by him. He's been very helpful when making maps in general, and for that, a big thank you to him. Also, as a fun fact, he was one of the few people who completed the flood section without cheating. Seriously, the first two judges had to cheat their way through. He's probably extremely patient or just stubborn. One of the two. You decide. And finally, a big, massive thank you to the entire Portal Mapping and Modding Discord server. It's full of helpful people and is an overall great place to hang out in. If at any time in this video you thought to yourself, man, this mapping stuff looks fun, I wanna learn it as well, then I highly suggest you to check out the Discord server. I have put all the relevant links in the description. Anyways, with all that being said, I'll see you all next time. Bye bye.